Yeah, in my mind, I have a clear answer. I don't know that, people that are doing the hiring, if they really understand, that whole part of what it takes to be a head coach in the league. I just don't know. But I think the biggest issue is, of course, leadership and being able to give that organization or that team a direction.
You draft around the quarterback and see what it looks like. Now that you have a pick that is probably going to be outside the top 5, you're lucky to get in the top 5 now with that win. Maybe you do, 4th or 5th, but you're not getting a quarterback unless you trade up. And I don't think you should anyway. So draft what you desperately need, which is linemen and receivers.
Yeah, in my mind, I have a clear answer. I don't know that, people that are doing the hiring, if they really understand this isn't just a coaching change, bro. This is a franchise-altering disaster unfolding in real time. So, don't skip a single second of this video. And if this story touches your heart, give it a like, subscribe to the channel, and let us know in the comments, where are you watching from? Let's begin. This is bigger than football. And I know people roll their eyes when they hear that, especially with the Cleveland Browns, because chaos is kind of their brand at this point. New rumors, new quarterbacks, new coaches, same ending. We've seen the movie. We know how it usually goes. But I'm telling you right now, this moment is different. This isn't just noise. This isn't just Twitter doing what Twitter does. This is real. This matters. And yeah, this costs money. What just happened with the Browns isn't fan panic. It's not talk radio outrage. It's organizational pressure. The kind that hits ownership in the wallet and hits a franchise in the long-term vision. Because the second a quarterback's name goes viral, especially one tied to hope, upside, and a potential reset, everything changes. Ticket inquiries change, merch interest changes, national perception changes, sponsors pay attention. The league pays attention. And Cleveland? Cleveland is once again standing at the edge of a decision that could define the next 10 years. That's why this moment feels heavier than past Browns chaos. Before, it was dysfunction for dysfunction's sake, bad decisions stacked on top of bad timing. But now there's something to lose. Now, there's an actual path forward on the table, and the cost of fumbling it is enormous. When quarterback rumors hit the mainstream like this, it's not just about football fit, it's about relevance. And relevance in the NFL is currency. People don't always want to admit this part, but quarterbacks are businesses. Franchise quarterbacks drive revenue in ways no other position can. They sell jerseys before they ever take a snap. They fill stadiums on hope alone. They turn 1 p.m. games into primetime events. So when a quarterback becomes connected to your franchise, even hypothetically, and the organization looks unstable, that's not just embarrassing. That's expensive. This is why I keep saying it. The Browns aren't panicking emotionally. They're panicking economically. Because the worst case scenario isn't just missing on a player, it's missing on momentum. It's fans hesitating instead of buying in. It's season ticket holders waiting instead of renewing. It's Cleveland once again being talked about as a punchline instead of a destination. And the timing couldn't be worse. This isn't April. This isn't draft week when chaos is expected. This is the stretch where franchises quietly sell stability, vision, and direction to players, agents, and fans. And right now, Cleveland looks loud, reactive, and unsettled. That's the danger, because in the NFL, perception becomes reality faster than people realize. Lose the quarterback, and you don't just lose games. You lose relevance. You lose belief. And eventually, you lose revenue. That's the real pressure hanging over this situation. Not headlines, not takes, not arguments on social media. This is about whether Cleveland can finally recognize the weight of the moment they're standing in, or if they're about to let another opportunity slip through their fingers before the draft clock even starts. And that leads to the uncomfortable question nobody in that building wants to answer yet. Where do the Browns actually stand right now? Right now, the Browns are standing on shaky ground, and everyone around the league can feel it. This is the part fans don't always want to hear, but it matters. Because when you strip away the rumors, the takes, the viral clips, what you're left with is an organization that doesn't look settled. And in the NFL, Instability is loud. It echoes through front offices, agent calls, and quarterback meetings more than any press conference ever could. Look at where Cleveland actually is today. Leadership feels fragmented. Coaching roles are in flux. Offensive direction is uncertain. And whether people want to admit it or not, that stuff matters more than draft position ever will. You can have a top 5 pick, but if the structure behind it is shaky, you're already starting from behind. This league has shown us the pattern over and over again. Stability attracts quarterbacks. Chaos repels them. Not because players are scared, but because careers are short. Quarterbacks and their agents are making long-term bets with short-term windows. They want clarity, they want alignment, they want to know who's calling plays, who's developing them, and who's going to be there when things get hard. And right now, Cleveland doesn't have clean answers to those questions. That we'll figure it out later mindset, that kills leverage. Because while the Browns are trying to sort things out internally, other franchises are already selling vision. They're pitching continuity. They're saying, here's your coach, here's your system, here's your plan. Meanwhile, Cleveland is still rearranging the room. This is how perception starts to shape reality. Behind the scenes, players talk, agents talk even more. And when a franchise develops a reputation for being reactionary instead of proactive, it sticks. Fair or not, Cleveland has earned that label over the years. Quarterback turnover, coaching changes, philosophies that reset every 2 seasons. It all adds up. Compare that to functional franchises around the league. They don't always win immediately, but they look like they know who they are. Think about how teams like Philadelphia or San Francisco sell structure first, talent second. Or how even when things go wrong, the plan stays intact. That's what quarterbacks notice. That's what agents trust. Cleveland, on the other hand, always feels like it's sprinting to catch up. Fixing yesterday's problem while tomorrow's decision is already due. And that constant state of urgency, it wears on people. It makes long-term commitments harder to sell. This doesn't mean the Browns are doomed, but it does mean they're operating from a position of weakness right now. And until they stabilize the top, until leadership, coaching, and direction are clearly aligned, every quarterback conversation comes with an asterisk. That's the uncomfortable truth. Because before Cleveland can convince anyone else to believe, they have to prove they believe in a plan themselves. And that's where the tension really starts to build, because when clarity is missing at the top, it opens the door for doubt, criticism, and the noise that's about to get even louder. The noise around Shedeur Sanders right now is loud, and a lot of it is lazy. You've heard it. I've heard it. Scroll for 5 minutes, and it's the same recycled takes over and over again. He's overhyped. He's only talked about because of his last name. He's not built for the league. And what drives me crazy isn't the criticism itself, it's how predictable it is. Same script, same tone, same people who always show up early to doubt, then disappear when the player proves them wrong. This is how it always starts. The media skepticism kicks in first. Not real breakdowns, just surface level questioning wrapped in concern. Scouts leak vague doubts without owning them. Social media runs with clips instead of context. And suddenly the narrative becomes louder than the tape. But let's talk about the double standard for a second, because that's where this whole thing falls apart. When certain quarterbacks grow up around football, it's called a head start. When others do, it's called nepotism. When one player plays under pressure, it's battle tested. When another does it, it's too much spotlight. Same circumstances, completely different framing, and Shedeur lives right in the middle of that contradiction. Pressure didn't break him, pressure built him. This is a quarterback who has played every meaningful snap with cameras on him, expectations on him, and critics waiting for a mistake. That's not hypothetical pressure, that's real. And instead of shrinking, he's shown command, poise, control, leadership. Those aren't things you fake. Those don't come from hype. They show up in third downs, late drives, and moments where everything speeds up. But because the narrative machine already made up its mind, every strength gets reframed as a flaw. Confidence becomes arrogance. Command becomes entitlement. Calm becomes not passionate enough. It's exhausting and it's transparent. Here's the part fans understand that critics ignore. Leadership under scrutiny is harder than leadership in silence. Anyone can look good when nobody's watching. Not everyone can carry a locker room when every move is dissected, clipped, and debated in real time. That matters in the NFL, especially in places where pressure doesn't let up. And behind the scenes, league belief doesn't always match public opinion. That gap exists every year. We've seen it before. Think about how Jalen Hurts was talked about. Think about how Lamar Jackson was questioned. Think about how many times not sure if he's the guy turned into how did everyone miss this? Public perception lags. The league moves faster. So when people dismiss Shedeur with one-line takes, it tells me more about the take than the player. It tells me who's watching closely and who's just repeating what feels safe to say. Because believing early takes courage. It means you're willing to be wrong before you're proven right. And that's where the tension is building. Because belief is growing in places that matter, even while the noise keeps shouting. And when that gap widens between doubt and opportunity, something has to give. The question isn't whether the critics are loud. It's whether they're about to be very, very wrong. Sometimes, the NFL doesn't reward stability, it rewards survival. And this is where the story takes a turn. Because as ugly as this situation feels for Cleveland right now, there's an uncomfortable truth we've all seen play out before. Dysfunction doesn't always kill opportunity. Sometimes, it creates it. Sometimes, the very chaos that looks like failure from the outside is the only reason a franchise ends up with the player who changes everything. Bad seasons create access to great players. That's the part fans hate to admit. Nobody wants to suffer. Nobody wants to watch another year spiral. But timing matters more than talent in this league. You can scout perfectly and still miss your window. Or you can stumble into the right moment when everything collapses just enough to reset the future. Think about it. If Cleveland was clean, stable, winning 9 or 10 games, cruising with clarity, would they even be in position to touch a quarterback like this? Probably not. They'd be drafting later. Settling. Convincing themselves the answer was already in the building. Sometimes the mess is the only thing that forces real change. And history backs this up. Redemption arcs in the NFL almost never start clean. They start ugly. They start with backlash, with doubt, with fans fed up and media laughing. We've seen it before. Teams hit bottom, then find clarity. Not because they planned it, but because they had no other choice. Here's the line that keeps ringing in my head. No one wants to inherit a mess except the right guy. Some quarterbacks need perfect conditions. Others are built to walk into noise and own it, to take dysfunction personally, to turn pressure into fuel. Those are the guys who change cultures instead of asking for them. And Cleveland doesn't need another caretaker. They need someone who sees chaos and doesn't flinch. That's where the destiny versus incompetence question starts to blur. Is this organization stumbling again, or is this the painful setup before something finally clicks? Because there's a version of this story where Cleveland suffers one more uncomfortable year, lands the right quarterback, aligns the right coach, and suddenly the entire narrative flips. But here's the danger, and this is important. Chaos only works if you capitalize on it. Dysfunction creates opportunity, but it doesn't guarantee redemption. Timing opens doors, but someone still has to walk through them. Too many franchises confuse having a chance with doing the right thing. That's why hope here feels cautious. You can see the outline of something bigger forming, but you've also seen this movie go wrong too many times. Fans have been burned by optimism before, promises before. This time is different before. Still, this moment feels loaded. Like the NFL gods lining things up and asking a simple question: are you finally ready to get out of your own way? Because if Cleveland executes, if they embrace the pain instead of running from it, this chaos could be the doorway to everything they've been chasing for decades. And if they don't, then this moment won't be remembered as destiny. It'll be remembered as another missed chance they never recovered from. And that's where the story gets really dangerous, because now the decision isn't theoretical anymore. It's coming fast. This is the moment, the kind that decides legacies, not seasons. Because in the NFL, windows don't stay open politely. They slam shut. And when they do, nobody cares how close you were or how complicated the situation felt. You either acted or you didn't. And right now, the Cleveland Browns are staring straight at one of those moments where hesitation costs more than any bad decision ever could. I'll say it clearly. This decision is bigger than one quarterback. It's bigger than one draft. This is about whether this front office has the courage to finally commit to a direction, or if they're going to keep hiding behind patience and process while the league passes them by. You don't get unlimited chances in this league. You don't get endless resets. Eventually, the bill comes due. This choice defines ownership. Full stop. Years from now, nobody will remember the excuses. They'll remember whether Jimmy Haslam and this front office finally planted their flag or blinked again. Because quarterbacks don't just change the scoreboard, they change the culture, the energy, the belief inside a building. They change how fans show up. They change how the league talks about you. And let's not dance around the money part either. This affects revenue. This affects credibility. This affects whether Cleveland is selling hope or selling nostalgia for another decade. Franchise quarterbacks put teams on national television. They keep stadiums full even when things aren't perfect. They give fans something to hold on to when the weather turns cold and the season gets hard. This isn't about waiting until everything feels safe. That's the trap. That's how franchises stay stuck. The great moves in this league rarely feel comfortable in the moment. They feel risky. They feel loud. They feel like you're stepping off the edge and trusting that your evaluation, your vision, and your conviction are right. So yeah, I'm making the prediction now. Cleveland is at a crossroads where one move changes the trajectory of the next 10 years. Get this right, and everything flips. The narrative, the perception, the belief. Get it wrong, and this era becomes just another chapter fans want to forget. And to the fans, this part matters most. This isn't about blind optimism. It's about demanding direction. It's about saying enough with the half measures, enough with the safe plays, enough with always planning for tomorrow instead of claiming today. You've invested time, money, emotion, and loyalty into this franchise. You've earned the right to ask for boldness. Windows close fast in this league. You don't get unlimited chances. So the question hangs in the air now, heavier than any headline or rumor. Is this the moment? Do they finally get it right? Or are we about to watch another opportunity slip away while the rest of the NFL moves forward? I want to know what you think. Drop it in the comments. Say it loud. Because one way or another, this story isn't ending quietly, and the next move Cleveland makes is going to echo for years.